No historian in the galaxy could agree on the exact moment humanity became the most feared species alive. But every scholar, soldier, and politician agreed on one thing. It began with a single human word: Huck. A word so small, so harmless, so meaningless to most species that it should never have mattered. But the problem wasn't the word itself. It was how a human said it. It was the tone, the weight, the emotion behind it, the expression that carried storms, sorrow, fury, exhaustion, irony, humor, pain, and threat, all inside one tiny syllable. And on that day, when billions across the galaxy heard a human whisper, "Huck," something ancient inside them trembled, something primal, something instinctive, something buried so deep in the mind that they didn't even know it still existed. Fear, not of death, not of war, not of monsters, but of humans. It started on a neutral space station called Varion 6, floating like a cracked bone in orbit above a dying red moon. Humans lived there, but only as refugees, laborers, cleaners, still new to the galactic stage, still underestimated, still treated like background noise. Every alien species believed humans were fragile, loud, emotional creatures whose biggest strength was their unpredictability. But even that, they thought, was manageable. What they didn't understand was that unpredictability wasn't a quirk. It was a survival mechanism older than their empires. On that day, a young human mechanic named Hale Rion was cornered by 3 Kroll enforcers, towering insectoid soldiers known for their cold discipline and merciless efficiency. The Kroll had been harassing human workers for months, stealing rations, humiliating them, calling them soft species. But today, they crossed a line. They stole Hale's ration pack, his entire food for the week, and crushed it under their armor boots. A simple cruelty, a small act, something that should have made Hale step back, apologize, and accept his place. But humans have a strange relationship with suffering. They endure, 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 and then suddenly they don't. Hale stared at the ruined food on the metal floor. His stomach was empty, his body exhausted, his face pale from too much work, too little sleep. The station lights flickered above him, buzzing like broken memories. The Kroll laughed their sharp metallic laughs, expecting fear, begging, or silence. Instead, Hale exhaled slowly, put one hand on his hip, tilted his head, and said the word that would rewrite history. Huck. It wasn't loud, it wasn't angry, it wasn't dramatic. It was the kind of huck humans say when something is so unfair, so stupid, so painful, so unbelievable that words fail. A huck that carried a lifetime of swallowed screams. A huck so emotionally complex that no alien language had an equivalent. A huck that said, "I warned you. I'm done being quiet. I don't care what happens next. This ends now." The Kroll froze, not because they understood the meaning, but because the station reacted. Every human within hearing distance turned their heads instantly. Conversations stopped. Tools were dropped. Someone dropped a tray in the cafeteria. A baby stopped crying. A soldier paused mid-step. Every human looked toward Hale. Because humans know that huck. It is a universal signal, a signal that a human has reached the limit, the point when instinct overtakes fear, when emotion becomes fuel, when survival becomes weapon. The Kroll shifted uneasily, suddenly unsure why the air felt heavier. Hale didn't move. He didn't make a fist. He didn't threaten them. He simply looked at the crushed ration pack, the way a soldier looks at a folded flag. Then, without warning, every human on the station began moving, not violently, not chaotically, but with terrifying synchronization. No species in the galaxy could coordinate without signals, without pheromones, without neural links. But humans didn't need signals. They needed a feeling. And they all felt that huck, Across the station, alarms flickered, security cameras registered an anomaly, human heart rates rising in perfect rhythm, stress levels converting into adrenaline, muscles priming, eyes sharpening. The station's AI flagged it as a species-wide behavioral shift, but before warnings could be issued, it was too late. A lone human mechanic stepped out from behind a storage crate. Another locked the door to the gallery corridor. Another unplugged the emergency comm panel. Another stood beside Hale, and then another, and another, and another. Within seconds, Hale was surrounded by nearly 50 humans, tired, hungry, exhausted, abused humans, refugees, workers, children, mothers, old men with shaking hands, soldiers hiding their insignias, civilians with scarred palms from harsh labor, humans who had nothing left but each other. And the Kroll felt something they had never felt before, prey-level fear. One of them stepped back. Another reached for his weapon. The third hissed and raised its claws. Hale lifted his eyes. "You shouldn't have done that," he said softly. His voice wasn't angry, it was disappointed. And disappointment from a human, for reasons aliens could never understand, hurts more than rage. The station went silent. Even the ventilation hummed quieter. Then Hale stepped forward, slow and calm, as if he were going for a walk. The Kroll panicked and swung a metal baton at him. Hale didn't dodge. He didn't flinch. He simply raised his arm and blocked the blow with bare skin. It should have broken his arm. It didn't. Humans weren't strong, not compared to other species, but humans had something else. Pain tolerance, unpredictability, emotion turned into fuel. That word, huck, had lit Hale's nervous system on fire. It shut off hesitation. It shut off limits. It made him something different. Hale grabbed the Kroll's arm and squeezed. Armor crumpled like paper. The alien screamed. The sound echoed down the metallic hallways. The galaxy might have forgotten what humans were capable of, but the Kroll remembered old legends, stories told in military academies, stories dismissed as superstition, stories whispered about a species who had survived extinction 5 times on their home world, a species who could fight while bleeding out, a species who used emotion not as weakness, but as a weapon. One huck had awakened those ancient instincts. The Kroll tried to retreat, but humans stepped forward as one, not attacking, not yelling, just advancing with a quiet, determined unity that looked almost inhuman. Security sirens blared. Alien officers rushed in, but when they saw the humans' faces, expressionless, focused, eyes burning with something far deeper than anger, they hesitated. Weapons trembled in alien hands. Datapads fell. Even the station commander, a towering reptilian Zorak, instinctively backed away. "What is happening to them?" one officer whispered. "It's a human thing," another said. The officer swallowed. "Explain." "No one can." The humans kept walking, not attacking, not speaking, just walking like a tide of fate. Hale picked up the crushed ration pack from the floor, wiped the dirt off it, and held it in his hand like a fallen soldier's dog tag. This wasn't just food, it was survival. His voice carried across the entire station, because humans don't need volume to be heard, they need meaning, and meaning travels like wildfire through the human heart. "You heard us," Hale continued, "and humans, we don't take that lightly." The Kroll officer shouted, "Stop them!" But his soldiers didn't move, because every species in the galaxy is born with one ancient instinct: never corner a human. When Hale raised his head again, the Kroll saw something worse than rage. They saw resolve. The kind of resolve that makes a species crawl out of extinction and build itself again. The kind that burns cities and rebuilds them in the same breath. The kind that makes humans cry for their dead and then rise like storms. Hale whispered again, barely audible, "Huck." And this time, the galaxy heard it. Every human on the station repeated it under their breath, a wave of hucks blending into one vibrating, trembling echo, a sound that wasn't a word anymore. It was a warning to the galaxy. You pushed humanity too far. Now face what comes next. And that was the day the galaxy started to tremble.
The galaxy had always underestimated humanity. Every empire, every fleet, every council had dismissed humans as a weak, emotional, and unorganized species. They saw us as prey, nothing more. But now, after Hale's Huck echoed across Varion 6, the entire galaxy paused. Sensors went wild, communication systems overloaded, and every species with an ounce of perception felt a shift they could not explain. Across light years, the readings were impossible. Waves of emotional resonance, synchronized heartbeats, and brain activity patterns that no technology could fully understand. The alien intelligence nodes, designed to anticipate threats, recorded something they had never seen before, a species whose emotions could alter reality. Some thought it was an anomaly. Some believed it was a virus. Some, like the telepathic Seraphi, understood the terrifying truth. These humans had weaponized their very souls. They were alive, and alive in a way that was a danger to all others. Meanwhile, on Varion 6, humans did not pause to celebrate or plan. They moved instinctively, coordinated without communication, guided by that same word, Huck. The first to act were the station laborers, those who had never handled weapons before. They picked up tools, metal rods, wrenches, kitchen knives, and even shards of broken glass. It did not matter that they had no training. Their fear had been transformed into raw purpose. Every movement was precise, every strike deliberate. The Kroll enforcers who had bullied them only moments ago were overwhelmed. One tried to retreat, but a human mother pushed a crate at him, tripping him, and another human grabbed him with a strength he had not anticipated. The alien soldiers fired energy bolts, but humans did not scatter. They moved unpredictably, dodging and weaving through the blasts, their eyes locked on a single goal, survival. And they were not alone. Survivors of previous assaults, engineers, children, and the elderly joined in, each contributing in ways that defied all logic. It was chaos, but a chaos that obeyed a single, unstoppable rhythm. From the observation decks of distant space stations, alien commanders watched in disbelief. For centuries, they had studied humans as weak and inferior, a species unworthy of attention. But now they witnessed something impossible, a species that was neither organized in military formation nor coordinated through technology, yet they fought as if connected by a single consciousness. The air itself seemed to vibrate with the word Huck, carried through the station's atmosphere, through cables, through energy conduits, and through the minds of every human present. It spread beyond the station, transmitted in subtle ways through ships and planetary systems. Even ships in orbit responded, activating defense shields as if anticipating danger despite no orders being given. Humanity had found its strength not in weapons or numbers, but in unity of spirit. As Hale moved toward the control tower, the Kroll tried to rally reinforcements. Screeching alarms sounded, and armored soldiers poured into the main hall. But humans anticipated them without speaking. Children pulled fire extinguishers down from walls, creating barriers. Elderly technicians operated machinery in creative ways, opening blast doors to block corridors, dropping heavy panels, and even redirecting plasma conduits as improvised traps. Every human acted instinctively, driven by a force older than memory itself. Hale's Huck had awakened something ancient, an instinct for collective survival that no alien species had ever encountered, and it was terrifying to watch. As the battle raged within the station, word of the anomaly spread across nearby systems. Alien fleets stationed light years away reported interference, disturbances in their communication networks, and panic among their own ranks. The Dominion had sent observers, anticipating rebellion, but instead they detected the impossible. Humans fighting without strategy, yet succeeding in ways their calculations had never predicted. A single huck had grown into a wave, a living pulse, a signal that humans were far more dangerous than any technology could measure. Fear began to spread among the observers, the kind of fear that grips a species when it realizes that what they dismissed as weak could destroy them. On Earth, which had been watching through secret sensors, the military and civilian leaders began to notice patterns. Humans on distant colonies were also moving, responding, preparing, not through orders, but through instinct. Engineers grabbed tools and weapons, scientists improvised, farmers, miners, and even children defended themselves in ways no training could teach. The emotional echo of Huck had traveled across interstellar distances, reaching the core of human determination everywhere. And for the first time, the galaxy understood that human emotion was not just internal, it was contagious, and it could be focused. Back on Varian 6, Hale faced the first true challenge, the alien command center. It was a heavily fortified room with the Kroll High Council inside. They had underestimated the humans, thinking a few soldiers could quell the uprising. But humans had no fear left. They moved with confidence that defied exhaustion, suffering, and even death itself. Amina, a young human girl, led a small squad, guiding injured companions through the corridors, using ingenuity to bypass locks and security measures. They lifted heavy debris, moved disabled robots into pathways, and formed barriers to shield one another. Every act of courage seemed to reinforce the pulse of Huck, amplifying it across the station. When Hale finally entered the command center, he did not charge, he did not shout, he simply walked in, the word Huck hanging on his lips. The Kroll High Council stared at him, expecting resistance. What they got was something far worse, a calm, deliberate human who had nothing left to fear. He exhaled softly, his voice carrying more weight than any weapon could carry. Huck. It resonated across the chamber, across the station, and through the minds of every human connected to the wave. Every alien felt it, every soldier froze, and for the first time in recorded history, a species realized that humans fought not because they were strong, but because they could not surrender. The rest of the station fell silently after that. Humans had won without traditional combat. They had used their will, their unity, and their emotion as weapons. Sensors in distant sectors continued to detect the ripple. Other colonies, other planets, even ships in the outer rim felt the wave. Intelligence nodes failed to comprehend it. Fleets sent to observe humans reported anomalies in behavior. Entire species experienced existential dread for the first time. Humanity had done the impossible. They had fought and won, not with technology, but with heart, mind, and soul. Hale's Huck became legend immediately, recorded by alien observers, whispered among fleets, and eventually transmitted to councils across the stars. It was the word that marked the beginning of a new galactic era, a signal that humans could not be underestimated, contained, or controlled. And the galaxy began to tremble, not from explosions or weapons, but from the realization that a species could survive, adapt, and fight back using pure emotional power. By the time the survivors of Varian 6 regrouped, every human on the station had done something extraordinary. Every act, no matter how small, contributed to the pulse, and every alien who had witnessed it, whether alive or barely functioning, carried the memory of that moment forever. They had seen a human say Huck, and in doing so, redefined what power really meant. For centuries, this story would be told in secret, in warnings and in whispers. Never corner a human. Never underestimate them. Never forget that when humans reach the point of exhaustion, loss, and grief, they do not collapse. They rise. And when they rise, they carry the universe trembling behind them.
The galaxy had never witnessed anything like it. After Varian 6, after Hale's whispered Hook, after the human pulse swept through colonies and space stations, every empire, every fleet, every council understood the terrifying truth. Humans were no longer just survivors. They had become the unpredictable, unstoppable force that no technology, weapon, or strategy could contain. Across light years, alien races adjusted their plans, redrafted strategies, and trembled in fear, not because of the humans' firepower, but because of their spirit, their will, and their unmatched resilience. The word hook had transformed from a mere sound into a symbol of human endurance, a warning, a weapon, and a promise, all at once. On the devastated colony of Varian 6, Hale walked among the survivors. Children clung to broken dolls, mothers wrapped tattered blankets around shivering shoulders, and soldiers leaned on each other, exhausted but alive. Hale's eyes scanned the ruins. Smoke curled from collapsed buildings. Sparks flew from damaged power conduits. Metal groaned under its own weight, threatening to collapse further. Yet in that devastation, there was order. Every human had done their part. Every human had fought. Every human had survived. And Hale felt something ancient stir inside him, something that had guided humanity for eons, the ability to endure, to rise from ashes, to turn suffering into strength. Meanwhile, distant alien fleets approached cautiously. The Void Council, a coalition of the galaxy's oldest empires, had assembled a war armada the size of moons. Their leaders, arrogant and confident, expected to crush humans before they could spread their rebellion. They did not anticipate what happened next. As the first ships entered human-monitored sectors, communications failed, navigation grids scrambled, weapons systems glitched, and then a single wave of hook, not shouted, not broadcast, but felt across space, rippled outward. It was subtle, yet impossible to ignore. Alien sensors registered a unique signature. Billions of humans scattered across planets and colonies had synchronized their emotional output. The result was an unquantifiable force, something no mathematics, physics, or strategy could predict. Fleet commanders panicked, orders were shouted, missiles were fired, energy beams flared, yet nothing could touch the humans. Ships drifted, systems faltered, shields sparked, and the galaxy felt a new kind of danger, emotional resonance as a weapon. No species had ever experienced it. No species had ever imagined it. Humans did not deploy technology. They deployed their hearts, their pain, their grief, their joy, their memories, their love, and their determination, and it was more effective than any superweapon ever created. The Void Council realized for the first time that the humans were not only unpredictable, they were unknowable. Hale, standing on the command bridge of the orbital defense station above Earth, exhaled slowly. His voice, carrying the familiar and deadly syllable, whispered across interstellar frequencies. Hook. The sound was low, steady, deliberate. It resonated with the emotional pulse that humanity had generated, amplified by every human across colonies and fleets. The effect was immediate. Alien soldiers froze mid-command. Ships staggered like wounded creatures. Calculations collapsed. Even telepathic species felt their minds unravel under the pressure of the human will. Fear, pure and unfiltered, swept through the galaxy. On Earth, humanity prepared for the inevitable confrontation, though it was unclear whether confrontation would even come. Scientists, engineers, soldiers, and civilians worked side by side, improvising weapons, fortifying defenses, and safeguarding the weak. Children too young to wield lasers assisted in the logistics, handing tools, relaying messages, and providing silent morale support. Mothers and fathers whispered words of encouragement, not knowing the cosmic impact they were contributing to. Hale moved among them, a calm force in the eye of an emotional storm. His eyes reflected years of suffering, of loss, of hardship. Yet behind that calm lay the terrifying truth. Humans never break. They bend, they bleed, they fall, but they always rise. The first engagement came not as a battle, but as a lesson. Alien vessels approached the inner solar system, expecting chaos. They found humans standing calmly, prepared not with aggression, but with resilience. When the aliens fired, weapons malfunctioned inexplicably. Shields shimmered with an unknown energy generated by human nervous systems, by synchronization, by the pulse of determination that the aliens could neither quantify nor counter. And when Hale exhaled another hook, the effect multiplied. Humans had discovered in that moment that their emotions, honed over centuries of struggle, could be amplified across distances to affect the galaxy itself. The aliens understood too late that they had underestimated a species whose very essence was warfare, endurance, and survival. During the engagement, civilians performed acts that would later be recorded in galactic history as legendary examples of human courage. Engineers manually rerouted energy conduits to collapse alien drones. Mothers and fathers carried children into makeshift bunkers while signaling soldiers to fire defensive blasts. Young recruits climbed to exposed platforms, risking death to jam communication arrays. Every action, no matter how small, contributed to the overall symphony of human survival, and every alien witnessing it, whether through sensors, observation posts, or live engagements, felt something they could not define, a deep, unsettling terror. The humans were alive in a way that defied comprehension. As the battle escalated, Hale finally confronted the flagship of the Void Council. The alien warlord, a creature with scales, claws, and eyes like molten metal, prepared to annihilate him. Yet Hale did not raise a weapon. He did not threaten. He stepped forward slowly, his presence alone radiating the collective will of billions of humans. He whispered the word once more, "Hook." And in that whisper was everything humans had ever endured: pain, loss, love, hope, determination, fury, and resilience. The warlord staggered, his mind and body unable to cope with the resonance of raw human spirit. He fell to his knees, overwhelmed. His soldiers, witnessing this, surrendered without hesitation, understanding that they faced something beyond force, beyond strategy, beyond comprehension. They faced the human soul unleashed. After the engagement, the galaxy was transformed. Empires recalculated borders, fleets were recalled, and treaties were signed, not because humans had destroyed the galaxy, but because they had proven themselves untouchable in ways technology could not measure. Hale walked among survivors, standing on the rubble of Varion 6, and whispered quietly, "Hook," not as a weapon, not as a threat, but as a reminder. And humanity, every human who had survived, who had acted, who had breathed, who had endured, realized a simple truth. We are not weak. We are the storm. We are the pulse that the galaxy cannot ignore. And one day, if the galaxy tests us again, we will rise again stronger than before. History would record the day simply, the day humanity said "hook," and the galaxy trembled. Legends would spread, myths would grow, and civilizations would teach their children to fear, respect, and never underestimate the human spirit. No fleet, no weapon, no empire could contain it. And in the quiet aftermath, Hale and the survivors looked to the stars, silent, exhausted, but filled with something alien species would never understand: hope, endurance, and unshakable unity. Humanity had survived once more, not through conquest, not through technology, not through fear, but through the strength of their hearts, their emotions, and the power to say one word that carried the weight of the universe: "Hook." And the galaxy would never forget it.